What happened to you? It's like you forgot what you're capable of.
Nobody gotta support you, first of all. So I used to take that personal. I used to be like, damn, nobody's supporting me, nobody's playing my records, nobody's really rocking with me in the city like that. And then I realized it's not personal. You just gotta make somebody, you gotta make them a believer. If they don't believe you tomorrow, cool. Focus on who is rocking with you, and then you circle back and you come get them on the way back.
So if you guys don't know, my name's Russ. The name that you choose, things like in the... This tree came back to life. Same tree that I honestly gave up on. You know, like I said earlier, there was a point in time when I gave up on the tree. And to be honest, there's been a significant amount of time where I gave up on myself. So honestly, this has been one of the hardest videos for me to make. I think because it's so personal, but a few days ago, I ended up getting a message from someone and they were asking me if I had any like origin story, just the beginning of how I got here, meaning my art, the clothing, just how I ended up doing what I was doing. So I thought to myself, yeah, of course I do. I went to go to Instagram because I've been on there for like 14 years. I thought to myself, I've told my story in little micro pieces. I thought I had something where I pieced it together, and apparently I didn't. But anyways, as I was going back into the archive, as I was scrolling on Instagram, I just realized how far I've come and how many things that I've done. I think somewhere down the line, I lost my way. I put so much weight into the metrics of everything I was doing, like with social media. You know, if I were to post something and I didn't get a lot of likes and I wasn't building my followers as fast as everyone else, it was like, you know, I would base that on my skills and my own self-worth. You know, I think it's so easy for us to just disregard our self-worth, or actually putting too much of our self-worth into, you know, these things, this algorithm, this world that is currently existing today with social media. And I'm not immune to that. And for many years, it really messed me up. But basically, when I made the intro, I kind of like just got a bunch of clips from the past. And when I compiled them and put it together, it just had this like emo type tone. But I'm telling you, it may sound that way, but it's really a message of hope. If you listen to the sound clip, it's this rapper named Bia. And Bia was just saying that, you know, she used to take it really personal, you know, when she wasn't getting people listening or people really talking about her, people not really supporting her. And she realized it's just, they haven't really found her yet, and just focus on the people that have found you. And I know that in the back of my mind, and I listen to that clip all the time because to me, it really speaks to me. It really resonates because it's how I feel and it's how I've gotten here. But I filmed this like twice, and I deleted all the clips twice just because it just didn't feel like how I really wanted to explain this. And I kind of yapped way too long, some parts, but let me take it back. For those that are interested, let me take it back a little. So as far as my origin, I've been into art ever since I was young. I've always loved art. I used to skate. I used to be into hip hop, so I would love the art on the skateboards. I would love all the hip hop art on their album covers and just the whole culture of it. So art has always been a part of my life and just something that I did as a hobby. And eventually I got into cars. And at the time it was like Japanese imports. If you think to yourself like Fast and the Furious, I got really into that. And at the time, that industry wasn't really an industry at all. It was just these kids on the street messing with cars that weren't meant to be raced. And that's what we did. And eventually though, like, there were some people that had that entrepreneurial spirit. And what they did was they started making these companies. And my brother was one of those guys. So my brother ended up starting this company that made intake systems for cars called Engine Technology. And at that time I did the logo. I didn't have the computer skills to actually do it, but I did it on a napkin, and I remember I drew it. That logo is actually still used today by the company, but we worked there and it was a partnership, and like most partnerships, they come to an end, you know. It didn't go well, but we were there for many years. We did a lot of things. Anything that had to do with the logo, I had something to do with, whether it be magazine ads, emblems, packaging, things like that. And that's where I really first got into like professional graphic design. When the partnership came to an end, I was kind of done with cars. I was just so sick of it. If you see fancy cars every day, it just loses the luster. But I was always into clothes. And from that point, I ended up getting a job at a company called Lifted Research Group. And at the time, Lifted Research Group was on the up and up. They were one of the fastest growing companies in California, like according to Forbes. They were young guys. They made a lot of t-shirts, hoodies, things like that. And they were like cream of the crop. They were up there at the time. And I got a job there. And when I did, I really thought I was like so talented, because when I worked at Engine, I was the only designer at the time there. And everyone would always say, oh, your work is so good. Your work is so good. So I just really thought high of myself. And when I went to LRG, it was kind of a wake up call. Just that there's other people that are really good and know more than me. And I kind of felt like I wasn't skilled enough to be there. I just really suffered with like imposter syndrome. But at the same time too, I thought of it as like a career for me. And that particular job was a little interesting because it's one of those jobs that's in a world of fun, and everything they did was so like over the top. If you think all of my coworkers, if you can imagine in your brain working somewhere where, imagine the coolest person in your high school and then multiply that by like 50, and every single coworker you have is the coolest person at the high school. And to work in an environment like that, it just wasn't for me. My stay there was very short-lived, but in the short amount of time I was there, I learned a lot about myself. I learned a lot of design really fast. And, but again, I knew that wasn't for me. But then again, my brother, like I said, the partnership with Engine ended. He started another company, and he said, we could use your help, and you can do all the same things that you used to do at Engine, but do it here. And to be honest, it was like mistake number one in my life, because I took the comfortable route rather than exploring different opportunities that I could have done somewhere else. And it's not to say that, I mean, hindsight's 2020. Maybe that was the right path for me. I don't know, because I didn't really explore other options at the time. I kind of dwell on that. I ended up doing car graphics and magazine ads, all the same stuff, and it was very comfortable. But again, we had a partner. And like I told you before, all partnerships come to an end. Somewhere down the line, there's going to be some kind of dispute over money or some kind of argument, and it just usually ends in a divorce. Again, I was laid off and I had to find a different opportunity. This is mistake number two, because at this particular time in my life, you know, I didn't have a family, I was single. There were a lot of different avenues I could have traveled down to find another job. And my oldest brother, he actually did clothing, and that was my way in to do clothing again. He said, why don't you come over here and do all this, but do it in clothing and do it for this company. It's remote. You don't have to be in a cubicle, and I think you're really going to enjoy it. So instead of exploring other avenues again and like really believing in myself, again, I chose the easier route, the comfortable route. And when I did that, I did clothes, and I worked at this company for several years. I designed t-shirts for a lot of the companies that are in like retail stores, department stores. I did a whole lot. I did a whole lot of t-shirt designs, and from there, it was like easy for me because that's what I knew and it was comfortable. But sometimes when you're comfortable, it doesn't allow you the chance to grow. And I think that's really where I feel like I should have done something different. But again, that's what happened. Because I worked remote, I ended up moving back to San Diego, falling in love with my wife, and starting a family. And we were going to have my daughter Stella. And I remember I was at the ultrasound for my daughter Stella, and I was sitting there, and I get a phone call from New York. And at this particular time, it was back when there was a recession. The economy was really tanking. There was the stock market crash. There was a housing crisis. Like, the economy was just in bad shape. And I think most people, like, at least in California, there were a ton of foreclosures. A lot of people didn't have jobs, but I was comfortable. I was doing fine. But we were at this ultrasound, and I was there, and I remember looking at my wife, looking at the screen of my daughter, and it was like one of the best times. We just bought a condo. Life was good. I got the phone call from New York. I looked at my screen. I told my wife, hey, I got to take this. It's my boss. I picked up, and he said, hey, Russ, I have some news to tell you. We're not able to keep the company anymore, and we're going to end up shutting down. But I just wanted to tell you thank you, and, but we're going to have to lay you off. And I said, oh, okay. I kind of played it cool because my wife was there. And I said, okay, talk to you later, And after that happened, my heart just like sank to my stomach, And I ended up like going home. I ended up pretending everything was fine, looking at my daughter on the screen, just thinking like what am I gonna do, And I remember I went home, and I just went into my room, and I kind of cried and just felt so lost. I felt like a loser. Like, I felt like my world just came crashing down. How am I gonna be so stupid to start a family, and you don't even have a job? And I remember just feeling like so low, down on myself, and just thinking like, I'm such an idiot. I should have done this, this, and this prior. And the reality of it, just that the economy was bad, and it just wasn't a good situation for most people. I never thought I was one of those people. I just didn't think I would ever get hit by it, and I did. And when I did, it really like knocked the wind out of me. And when I fell down hard. Mentally, I just crashed and I got depressed. I was applying for jobs left and right, and nobody wanted me. Nobody wanted graphic designers. Nobody could afford graphic designers. It was just a bad situation for someone that did art, or, a job that was not like essential per se. So for me, I was just so lost. I was unemployed. I felt super low. It was just a really low moment. So after all that happened, after days of making resumes, getting rejected, in that time when I was looking for jobs, I was also daydreaming about what I could possibly do. The only skills I had were design. And I knew that I didn't have the funding to go start like an automotive company or anything like that. I knew that was out of my reach, but I knew that I had some skills. I watched some videos on YouTube about screen printing and making t-shirts. And honestly, I think most people, when they need some side money, the first thing that comes to their mind is like, I should make t-shirts and sell them. And I'm not saying you're an idiot for believing that, because I believed it too. Everyone thinks it's so easy. And I guess it's like the dreamer in you, but it is extremely hard. And that's for a different video. I ended up banking on myself, investing everything I had into creating a brand. And I started this brand, Human Catalyst. I would say I started it with my skills, but I really started it with the belief of my wife powering me. I didn't have any belief at this time. Like, if I had a battery, my battery was on red at 10%, but my wife was saying, you know, like, you can do this. And every time she would support me, it would recharge my battery. And I felt like I could actually do it. I went on my computer, just designed all day, just started making things and actually dreaming that I could do this. And I actually went out and did it. Little by little, I started gaining some fans locally, started an Instagram, started getting fans, different states, it started spreading, started growing. And at the time, I thought I was like really on the up and up, and I thought I could actually make this work. Little by little, you know, it just got harder and harder. The more I grew, like new problems existed, could only grow so much just being an online business. And my wife, again, she said, you know, they're building this block. They're adding all these breweries and all this stuff. Maybe you should open a store down there. And I was thinking like, what? There's no way. There's no way I could do that. I can't even afford to run an online business, you know? And she was the one that put the idea in my head and believed in it. And she believed in me. And she, like, we drove down the street, we saw this place. I said, for lease. And I called the number, and it was actually feasible. And I talked to my wife, and she goes, I think you should do it. And I said, this is so crazy, but I ended up signing a lease. I've been at the shop for 8 years. This is my 9th year. It's probably my last year just because of a lack of interest in running a retail shop. The world has changed so much. You know, ever since 2020, people don't shop the way that they used to. A lot of it is online. A lot of people just don't go hands-on and talk to people like they used to. I just find it like not really essential in today's day and age. You know, it's something that I struggle with because the shop has become my safe space. It's become my home away from home. But with my life, with my son, just a lot of times I need to be here at home. And it's just not really a feasible place for me to be and for me to actually make it grow. I can make it survive, but to make it grow is a different story. And if you're not growing, like, what are you doing, you know? So like in a nutshell, that's what this is about. This is how I got here. It's really through a bunch of just life experience and attempts to believe in myself, a lot of failures, a lot of like really thinking I can do it and then finding out I can't because the world crashes. And it's a lot of me taking blame for all these other things that I can't control. There's a thing like the coffee shop. The owner of the coffee shop always tells me, you know, when your Instagram post does bad, what can you do? It's the algorithm. It's not really you. But for me, right, I feel this burden like, dude, I'm failing your company because of my skills. Like I'm not making it happen. But in reality, it's true. It's things that are beyond my means. And all you can do is show up and try your best and do what you do. And the minute you start overthinking and beating yourself up, like you end up knocked down. And that's where I was for several years. You know, when COVID happened and people weren't supporting small businesses. Somehow that was my fault. Somehow, well, I see all these other people thriving, but like, why am I not? But at the same time, I didn't have the confidence to like believe in myself. So when, even now, like currently, you go to my online store, I have very little things because I think nobody wants them. But somehow I've tricked myself into telling myself that. But even if people wanted them, I don't even have anything. How can they buy it? But it's for me to like self-sabotage. And I guess the whole point of this video, the whole point of why I made it was to tell the origin. But it was really because when I looked back I just saw and remembered just how many amazing things I've done. I do have skills. I do have a lot to bring to the table. I am capable. I am creative. The only thing I'm not is a lot of times I don't believe in myself. And if you find yourself in that boat, like maybe take a look back, maybe write down all the things that you've done. And you might surprise yourself. You might really be surprised at where you were and where you are today and just how much you've done to get here. Like chances are you're more amazing than you give yourself credit for. I know for myself, that's how it was for me. So this was kind of long. It wasn't really interesting, I suppose. I'm going to try to add some B-roll and whatnot. But again, I didn't want to make it like an emo vlog. And I started spending too much time trying to make it into too much of a YouTube video and just too polished. And I just kind of gave up on that, where I was trying to do Vlogmas and I ended up missing days. And if I didn't make this right now, I was going to miss today. And I wanted to get this out. So this has been Vlogmas 6-7. I know that's old, but old people still think it's funny. And thank you for checking it out. Thank you for watching. And I hope, you know, whatever position you're in, just don't forget, like I did. I'll see you tomorrow.